2000, I went to Rema Bible College, and that's when I was doing ministerial training major. It was a great experience, considering that a poor guy coming from a poor background, from a poor area, being exposed to the city life for the first time, and that independence. Um, it was interesting meeting different people from outside the country, inside the country. But the greatest challenge was the fact that at that time, that was when my dad's business was really going down. When I left, my dad didn't have a car. All his cars broke down. His businesses, the driving school shut down. The shop was struggling. So that would mean that my school life would be difficult financially. I remember I had a friend connected me to his friend that ended up helping me with a place to stay. I I had to stay where, of course, I was not paying rent, thank God. And I had so much help where food is concerned because there was no monthly money coming in. I remember my dad gave me 2,000 rand saying, you are insisting to go to this school. This 2,000 rand will include your transport to Johannesburg, your accommodation, and then your transport to school every day, registration, your food, your clothing, all that in that 2,000 rand. And my registration was 2,000 rand. So by just traveling, already I was behind on finances, and it was tough. I went out by faith. I went to school. By God's grace, I managed to register. I started going to school, and school life was great because this is something that I always loved. I enjoyed the scriptures, reading, learning new things that I didn't know. It was great for a great time. But life outside that was tough. You can understand a person that's staying where he's not paying rent. It's not like I was a friend of that family or a family member. They're just doing me a favor. The question is, how long will that favor last? And of course, people get tired at some point, and that time happened, and it was a bit of a challenge to have to put up with people that are irritated of your presence, and yeah. And the worst part was the fact that I was just a teenager, with with a typical boy from the village who has never known to use a roll-on or a spray. Worse, he couldn't even afford. With your testosterone, then the next thing, the sweat becomes too strong, and the house was very small. So yeah, that became a huge problem. It in a way it did affect me, because to have to admit and to have to know and hear whatever you actually think, it was painful, it was harsh, it was hard. But what else could I have expected? Until I moved, my sister was in the city at the time, but she was also not working, so there wasn't much she could do for me. I remember a time that I had to sleep in the streets, because even friends got tired, because their families would be complaining, you're staying with someone who's not paying rent, who's not buying food. And I'll have to just leave my stuff and find a place where I can just hide my head for a night, and then in the morning rush back, wait for the security to open for me so I can go in and take a quick shower and then walk to school. It yeah, my school life was harsh. It was very painful, difficult. But I never thought for a moment that I should quit. I I pushed, and monthly I was expected to pay, and there was no money coming in. And it was a miracle that other students were expelled because of fees, and somehow my name was hidden until I graduated. Yes, I did end up paying the rest of the money, but from where I stood, I should have been fired. I mean, chased out. I went and sat with the dean. I explained my situation. Um, yes, they gave me, extension, but by God's grace, I graduated. I remember, I think I paid 2 days before my graduation. That was when I was settling my affairs. Well, while others were already chunked out, and yeah, it was a tough one. I felt that Gauteng was a bit rough for me because the other thing was, coming here, those were still difficult times when it comes from, I mean, into the transitioning from 94. Now we had issues between ourselves as Africans. I don't remember how many times I've been arrested by the police saying that I'm not South African. I must explain where I got my ID because I was forced to carry my ID every day. So they said, no, 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 you can't be South African. You will tell us, where did you get the ID? And many times I've been threatened to be taken to Lindela because I didn't look South African. And for some reason, they said I don't even sound South African. I don't know. I don't know how, but that's what other people thought. And I will be working with friends, they will single me out. And they will say to the rest, they must go. Actually, I was not mistaken for any other group or nationality or race other than Nigerian. I had to be sent back to Nigeria. And I don't know, maybe my ancestors are more in Nigeria. Well, to my Nigerian friends out there, you have your long lost brother that's here in South Africa. So please hook up. But yes, it was fun. Now looking back, yes, there are sad moments that I don't wish them on anybody. The life of the street life is not good, mostly because it's Hillbrow. I had moved to Hillbrow, and it was not safe at all. And worst of all, when you look Nigerian, so people, by xenophobia issue, I was in danger, and also other hobos that I might be taking their spot. Sometimes because I was just learning the street life, I will go to places like High Point because they had some stairs where you can hide under, but the security will always find me and chase me out. And sometimes I'll go to Shebeen's, the 24-hour tavern, that I'll just get there, spot a table that is full of bottles, and act drunk like I'm the one who was drinking, so I can just sleep there like I'm drunk. But of course, fights will break out, and the next thing, yeah, you'll see bottles flying everywhere. So it's not safe. So you must vamos. And but God's grace had kept me until I graduated, and I thank God I had that experience. That helps me today to have sympathy towards other people that are struggling. I will not want to see other people suffer. Yeah.
Is there anything significant that happened spiritually when you were in Bible college?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Wow. Great memories on that one. Um, this was one time I was studying, and actually there was a time I was still staying with a family that I was staying with, and I came back. I had to do my assignment and some research. So I came back. I was playing my gospel music. I'm trying to remember the artist, but anyway, I don't know if it was Hillsong, but in the process, as I was studying and taking notes and all that, there was this great presence that felt that would fill the room, and a great bright light. And from where I was sitting, looking down, I couldn't lift my eyes to look up anymore to see who is here. It was so heavy and overwhelming that I couldn't even get up. I was shaking. And of course, because I've walked with God, having been taught this and that about the visitation of the Holy Spirit, the presence of holy angels, it gives you idea of what could be happening. I began to pray because like that was just too much. I couldn't handle it. So I started praying, Lord, if this is you, please, I can't take this. Your presence is just too much for me. Um, I was on tears. I don't know. I was not crying, but I was in tears, and I was shaking. And it persisted for some time until eventually I could feel that presence lifting and the brightness becoming a little bit better. And by then I was on my knees, just looking down on my knees. I couldn't lift my eyes. And when that presence lifts off, I began to pray and just thank God for the visitation. And I believe that was the Lord's visit. For I don't know what it is that He wanted to say to me, if He wanted to say something, or just to give me the strength to go through what I was going through at the time. And I remember when I finally got up to go back to my books, one of the ladies that was staying with us was coming back from work. She unlocked the door, walked in the house. The minute she walked in, I don't know what she saw. She just threw the bag on the table and ran out. Never came back until the owners of the house came back as well later. And of course the pastor, because the leader, I mean the head of the family was a pastor. He was like, "Were you praying in here?" I said, "No, I'm just studying." He said, "Oh, okay," and never said another word. So that made me believe that, oh, okay, which means indeed my sister ran away from this presence, and it's like an aroma that could still be felt in the room even after it's been gone for some time. And that was my second encounter, but this one was more intense because the first one was the time I was still in high school. But now that I'm in college and I had this experience, it was scary, it was overwhelming, it was just something else. And yeah, during my college life, that was that one time, other than some of the things that the Lord will just show you, that pertains to the future, which some I see today. My life became even more interesting after school. I while I was in drama, that's where I met my mother, my spiritual mother, Apostle Rendo. It was interesting how we met. Um, Actually, in class I was with their daughter. We became friends in school, and somehow along the way I couldn't see her in school anymore. So I went looking until I met her mom, and then we became a family. So after graduation, I was so, on fire, for the Lord. I wanted to explore, to work, and, to serve. And I felt I need exposure still. The best place for me was to not go back home, but to go elsewhere where I can learn new things. And Apostle Renda welcomed me to her family and ministry, Jesus Prayer International in Botswana. And that's when I started traveling to Botswana. And wow, that was another chapter of my life. I remember God had used her so much to build the man that I am today, because she didn't spoil me. That one, she made sure she didn't spoil me. She allowed me to grow and to seek God, not to look at her as my provider, because she was in a space or position where she could easily provide anything I needed. But her and the family chose not to, and rather redirect me to God, that my focus should not be people, but God being my provider. It was a tough journey for me to learn that I had to actually, I had to break out of the shell and dependency and looking at people as my source. I remember one time when she said, if indeed God called you, then God must be your provider. I needed shoes. I mean, the situation was still the same, if not worse, when I left home. I mean, where there was a challenge of having provision, food, and other stuff, and clothing. And but I was given responsibilities. I remember the first, very, very first responsibility that I had when we went back to Botswana was that the house that they moved back into was rented out to people that, of course, will do what they believe in, which is not Christianity. And we didn't know. So we moved back in together. My first job was to, work in the garden. And as I was working in the garden, that was another way God wanted to direct me and show me where am I called into. Because as I will be digging so that we can plant trees and flowers, I will be digging out charms that, I don't know if it is the people that left before we entered or other people, I don't know. But I dug out charms from every corner of the house, and even outside the gate, there were charms everywhere. And by God's grace, they didn't harm me. I destroyed all those things. I will just show them, like, look what I found. And maybe also thank God I was from Venda, where things like that don't scare me. But it was good. It really kind of given me more faith and confidence in God and His calling for my life. I continued there, working, cleaning up the yard, taking off the trash, and that was my responsibility. Doing breakfast sometimes for the family and stuff. And later on, that was when I was dispatched to my post where I was supposed to work in the area called Maluka Hanyang. Wow, I'm from a very rural area, but that was like a very, very, very top of the range rural area where you travel a distance to actually see your neighbor. Not because the yards are big, but just because another one stays over there, another one stays over there. You travel. Like that village was occupied every corner. but people were far. The path. I remember one time going to our neighbor. I met this huge python stalking a goat. I mean, being a vendor boy, I grew up knowing that when you see a snake, you must hit it. And that area was a flat area, not rocks, nothing. I found this pebble because I just couldn't walk away without hitting a snake. And that python was so focused trying to hypnotize a goat. So I hit it on the head. And out of shock, it went up, stood on its tail, and fell towards me. Well, I think it just looked around and wondered what happened, because I don't know if I flew or I was running, but I was nowhere close to the snake within seconds. So that's how dangerous that life was. In between, so when you walk at night, you're in danger of snakes and other things. So yeah, I moved into that place where, wow, life was also there challenging, because it's very rural. In the family where I was, they had cows, so they make money by milking cows. So I had to join in. As they milk cows, they'll sell the milk. So I will get paid also since I'm working. My wage was 5 liters of milk, fresh milk, every day. There was no meat, there was nothing else. There's just mealy meal and fresh milk. That would be breakfast, lunch, and supper. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So it was that life. And yeah, it was, at first I was enjoying it. Ngauri ngathi venda rena zwene ra tshi dzula amba uri upfi vhuswa munamba vha tshi pfa upfi ngwa munamba ya ufuna irosha ya mbikeli, meaning the pap that is cooked with milk only, that even a dog wishes to have that, but who will cook it for you? So when I will then come up with ideas of cooking pap with milk, but when you're done, you realize, what am I going to eat it with? So that it's like mushibo and pap in the same time. So I had to come up with many ways of eating this. We will develop madila. Madila is, here we say inkomas, sour milk. So how it's done, you pour it in a bucket and then leave it until the waters from the milk subside, and then you take out all those the milk when it's like a bit sort of solid, and then put it in a sack, hang it on under a tree for days. So the weight will just drain water out until it becomes almost fluffy. Then you put it back in the bucket, put it fresh milk in, and then you have your inkomasi. So, we'll do that as well, just so that we can eat something different. But my challenge was, when I was there, I was supposed to start a church. There was no church, there was nobody, there was no Christian, there was just me. And another miracle that I've seen was God teaching me to read a Setswana Bible within a week, to speak the language and to read the Bible, so that when I go, because I will go to the traditional churches there, because there was only traditional churches, more Methodist, more St. Mary, St. Peter, St. Andrew, all the saints, those were the churches there. And when I get there, people in the village, they don't speak English, they are speaking Setswana. So I had to learn to speak quite quickly, so that I'll be able to preach, of which it was interesting. At first, of course, you'll be speaking like a baby, but I never gave up. They will laugh at some point, because I would just go to a church, they don't even know me, and I got up and preach. That was an interesting life. I won't go back there, but it was a very innocent and very, very funny, and very, the audacity to just walk into people's churches and they say the pastor's coming, and I stood up. and nobody could sit me down because they don't even know who this guy is. And the other thing was, people will not believe that I'm a pastor because I was still very young. I guess I was 20 years old and very lean and tall. So they had never seen a young pastor before. So pastors were old people. And so I live there, work in the time of they also had an orange plantation. So in the time of oranges, we'll go in the field very early in the morning, pluck out the oranges, for them to sell, and then come back, milk the cow, get my breakfast from the cow that moment, and go make breakfast. And the other thing was, my other responsibility from the ministry side was that I should debush the area. There was an area where we're supposed to start a farm for the ministry so that it can sustain me, because I was not going to live by hallelujah every day. So I'll have to have food. So we started with there was a brother of the pastor, Odi Rile. Odi, what a beautiful man. I believe now he's a pastor. That was a great man. He had a great heart, very loving. He was way older than me, way older than me, like 30 years or so old than me. But he will treat me like we are friends, we are equals. He will love me and treat me like, yeah. I really appreciated that man. He made my stay very simple. So we started working together, digging out trees, cutting them down, preparing a farm. Because the sun that side can be very hot. So by 4 you must be up, because by 6, 7 you won't be able to work anymore because of the heat. So we'll have to wake up very early, go out there. And my sleeping was a bit difficult because my room was next door to the room where we store the milk. And we had a lot of flies because we had a lot of cows. So flies like milk, and the flies in my room, they could enter anyhow. And so if I sleep beyond 5 anyway, I'll wake up with flies on my face, my nose, everywhere. So you just have to wake up early. Wow, it was great. And God forgive us. God forgive us. One time, Odie and I, we were tired of the milk. And the old man was not around. God rest his soul. I understand he has gone home to be with the Lord. He was not around. He had gone to the city for the eye operation. And we came together. Like, are we going to sit in this situation till we die? Like the 4 leprosy men. He said, no, the old man has chickens. And he will not even give us 1 chicken. So we stole a chicken. And I was a pastor, very anointed. But I stole a chicken. God forgive me. Forgive me for the chicken. We buried the feathers because we didn't want to get caught. And we will, when we cook it, we were able to separate the meat and the fat, so that tomorrow when we can find something, even if it's vegetable, we put the fats of the chicken. The vegetables are taste like chicken. So we were planning on the future. So we cooked it. We had our dinner and we left some for tomorrow. So at least for 2 days we had chickens and had a break from the milk. And because we buried the feather, the old man could not even notice, like, there's, maybe the chickens are missing or something. No, life continued. And I asked the Lord to forgive me then. And I was like, Lord, you understand. I've been eating milk for months now. I need some chicken, please. But the other thing that became a difficulty for me was going out to the village and meeting villagers, because I'll go into their homes, door to door ministry, I remember this other family. I went there. Their house didn't have a door. Windows didn't have glasses on. And that area, when it is winter, it gets so cold and windy. So you can imagine the poverty, the level of poverty. And I found them eating millicon, the dry millicon. They would boil it since morning and just eat it like that because there was nothing else to eat. They didn't have mealie meal, they didn't have vegetables, they didn't have anything. They didn't have goats, they didn't have cows, they didn't have chickens. They had nothing. And that day, I remember I didn't preach. I just sat with them, talked with them. Because usually, I mean, there was already a rumor around there is a boy from Johannesburg, Wachoma, meaning he speaks only English. So that day, I rushed back, went and took my 5 liter, brought it to this family so that they can eat. And I started doing that every day. I'll just save a little bit for myself, the rest I gave to them. Until this one time, a pastor gave me, it was 300 pula for my upkeep. So I can buy, because by then I didn't have soap, I didn't have roll on, I didn't have lotion, I had nothing. And my clothes, the guys that were working in the family where I was, they will look at my clothes and say, no, can I have this? Can I have that? And they ended up taking all my clothes. And now I smell like a cow because I bath with water just like that. So I was given 300 pula. So I went to Pizzani, where there were like some grocery shops, smaller ones. But unfortunately, I couldn't buy what I needed. I think I only bought toothpaste. The rest of the money, I bought window panes. I bought I was encouraged that there are people that are suffering more than I was. And so I couldn't see my pain anymore. All I care about was what can I do to take care of them and make their lives much better. I So hence I use all that money. I remember things were very cheap then, that side. I even bought full chicken for them so that they can taste chicken at least. That they don't have to steal like I did. But it was fulfilling. I didn't care if I had roll on or I had lotion, as long as those guys were no longer sleeping in the cold room, because it was just one room, the whole family, the parents and the kids in that one room. So, the fact that I was able to put that cheap door and the window panes, well, that was a great achievement for me. And of course, as time goes, I remember one time I went to a shebeen because all the guys they had nothing else to do except drink chibuku. And I will spend most of the time, if I'm not doing door to door, I'm all by myself, and it's hot. So it was not easy to continue doing door to door. And also, majority of the people, even ladies, will go drinking chibuku. So the only place I could find these people were at the shebeen. So I went with the guys that I was staying with because they also drink. So I went with them and sat there. They were drinking, and I'm just sitting there until somebody asked, "Who is this one that's not drinking?" I said, "Oh, no, he can't drink. This one is a pastor." And they couldn't believe there's no pastor who sit in the shebeen. And they said, "If you are a pastor, preach." People when they're drunk. And then the owner of the shebeen also was there. He came with a Bible for me to preach. I can't remember the scripture, but I spoke about the power and the authority of Jesus, that Jesus' grace and power is powerful enough to heal any sickness, and any challenge can be resolved. And when I finished, because as I was preaching, these guys realized this is real stuff. And then there was washing on the washing line in that house, and they quickly, people just went and grabbed clothes, even for kids and stuff, put on their shoulders. They believe that you cannot be in the presence of church or God while your shoulders are out, whether you're a man or woman. And I realized, wow, these guys are giving me respect. This means this is getting serious. I kept on preaching. So when I finished, the owner of the shebeen, he used to limp. He had a problem with his hip bone. And he said, if what you're saying is true, and you are a pastor, let your God heal me now. I was like, okay, come here. I called on the name of the Lord, and I spoke healing over his life. He got healed instantly. Instantly. The bone, because it was out of the socket, it went back in. There was no more pain, and people couldn't believe it. So he said, please, every Sunday, please come, start a church here. And I was invited in the shebeen to start a church. Started a church in that shebeen. Sometime later, he invited me to his home village where he came from before he moved where he was staying with his family now. Now the village where his mother was and some of the relatives. He said people are sick there. He took me there. We took a bus. We went to his village. And when I got there, that this is now the time when, you know, the gift, I was learning the gift of word of knowledge, word of wisdom, and prophecy. So all these things were very confusing still for me, because even in school we were never taught that. But I just hear people talk about that. So with me, if I am in the presence of people that are suffering from something, all that pain will come to me. If it is depression, I'll be depressed. If it's period pains, I'll have period pains as a man. It was horrible. I didn't understand what it was then. And that time, I entered that home. My goodness, I was overwhelmed with the pain everybody was suffering from in that place. I had to really pray. Remember, this other kid had a lump, something that grew on his chest that protrude forward, and the other one's neck turned, and then they stay that way, sleep that way, walk that way. There were just so many sicknesses there in one place, and they had invited their neighbors, and all those things. My neck couldn't turn, I couldn't breathe, my waist, everything in me hurt. I had to earnestly pray and ask God to heal me, and in healing me, He was healing them. And that's when I became a bit popular in those villages. Of course, everybody wants a piece of you. Come heal me here. Do this for me. Do this for my family. And the church grew. And I'll have to travel. So I'll go there first in the morning to the shebeen. That's when I've started earning my first earnings. Because when I went there, I will preach to them and pray for them. When I have to leave, they said, no, Muruti, you cannot just go. We must give our offerings. They'll put their 5 pullers, 2 pullers. And to me, I'm from faith mission background. Pastors don't have anything to do with money. We must stay away. They said, no, Muruti, what are you going to do? You are the only Christian among us. So you can't trust us with this one. So this money is yours. We are giving it to you. And mind you, at that time, I didn't have anything. In all my stay there, what I received from the ministry was only 300 pula in all my stay. So being there and being given this, sometimes it'll be 15 pula, sometimes 40 pula, but at least I was able now to can catch get a lift and pay 5 pula to go and preach somewhere. And but the mostly the transport that I'll get will be trucks that are transporting cows. That is a great business there. So you'll be sitting at the back of the truck with the cows going to church, and you pay that 5 pula. That really helped, because prior to that I will have to walk like 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers to get to the next church. And it was painful, and this is in the bushes, because you remember the other house is over there, so you walk in the bush for so long, and 95% of the bush is just thorn trees. But it was a great experience. It gave me a lot of time to pray and not to focus on my needs, where things are not right, but mostly on what I want God to do in my life and where God is taking me. So, yeah, Botswana, sure, it's a great experience. I mean, sometimes I'll have to travel to Gaborone, to this capital city, to a pastor, and we'll travel together for ministry, like Slibe Pikwe, Mahalape, Francistown. Now we're talking about 500, 600 kilometers travel. And, I had my main job to carry the luggage, to carry the shoes, to read scriptures when she ministers. For the first time, when I had an experience of a person die in my presence, we were having a service, and then somewhere next door they rush in to say, please come help us. This person is dying. We walk in there and we're like, where is the person? The way that person was so sick, where they were lying on a mattress on the floor, and there was a blanket on top. It was like there was nothing there. There was no human being. The way this person was so, frail and so sick, and you could smell death. We prayed, but the Lord said, no, lead this person to Christ, because there is no other time. Remember, it was a lady. We led her to Christ. She received Christ. She was not able to speak. She was not able to do anything. But that when we made the prayer, she was able to nod her head. And for the first time, her voice came out. And her face began to light up. Well, Botswana was great. Great experience. Much growth. But I also had challenges, just like I had here at home with the police. When I got there, in Botswana, I was not Nigerian. I was Kwere, and I don't even know from which side. You get in a taxi, they will be, yeah, oh, Zimbabwe. And they will talk of me as if I'm not even there. And wow, but God is good. So one time I was too focused on my work. I forgot that I don't have a work permit as yet. So I'll have to go back to the Home Affairs. Is it Home Affairs? Or rather, I must leave the country, come back and renew my days. And that time I forgot. I only woke up to realize, I think I was 5 days over, and I quickly went to Gaborone to the immigration offices. And when I got there, they said, hey, Rewe, ow, guys, okay, if you have to, you can just deport me. So no, we cannot deport you without arresting you. You must first, sleep in the cell, and then we'll throw you at the border when we're good and ready. We had to bring in help to try and negotiate this thing, but Botswana, they will not budge. Yo, you guys are tough. But it was scary for me, but I felt like it is nothing new. I mean, if my own people treat me that way, I wouldn't have expected anything less from a foreign country. Worst of all, my Setswana was not clear, so they could tell that I'm not Mutswana, so they can treat me anyhow. Like these foreigners are coming in our countries, and in a way, it helped me to also sympathize with other people that are not South Africans when they are mistreated in our country, because I know the feeling, how it feels when people talk of you like you're not human. And in all these things, God was still God, and the calling was still very much there. The anointing that, dig out charms and chase out demons was still very there. And yet, it was it was humbling, and I thank God today that it still helps me to not think myself better than anybody, but always look at other people with respect, because you don't know people, you don't know where God is taking them, you don't know what God is doing and He's going to do with their lives in the future. All we know is these people, this person maybe might be disadvantaged, might not be as wealthy, as educated, as handsome, as fancy as, and we treat those people as if they're second class. So Botswana, and since that time of the police in Botswana, I realized, no, I am done. I want better. I'd rather go back to my own country. Remember, I didn't want to go home because I know what is waiting for me at home. I wouldn't want to go to Johannesburg because there was nothing. I didn't have money for accommodation. I didn't have money for anything. So everything that I will experience in Botswana, I felt like it was nothing, provided I have roof over my head, and whatever is there that I have to eat, I will eat. And God was good in all those circumstances. So Botswana, I got ordained in Botswana as a pastor. A lot of things happened to me, and oh yes, I was still that guy that ran away from a relationship while he was in college. I was still that very one, because now I'm broke and I wouldn't know what to do with a girl anyway. So my focus, and the fact that I don't have money for roll on, so I couldn't think of girls or anything. I was just looking up to the Lord and what He has in store for me. And for some brother out there that you're going through the same, hold on, brother, hold on, focus on the Lord and the purpose and the mission of your existence. The rest will follow. If you don't have roll on, it won't be like that forever. You will afford a roll on one day. So I'm laughing today. It was a crying matter then, and I had to accept that I can't work in Botswana. I can't stay in Botswana. I must just come and face my music. I will go in and out of Botswana. Since then, I've been doing that. But as to stay there, I had to give up that. And I believe the Lord took me there not for me to stay, but for me to grow and to learn all that I've learned. And in everything negative that anybody might have contributed in my life, I don't want to believe that those people did that because they disliked me. God permitted them so that to train me and to make me into the person that I'm supposed to be for the work I'm doing today. it might be painful for some when they look back and think of all the horrible things that some I can't even mention. But it was necessary. Remember when Christ says to John, when John says, I can't baptize you, even your shoelace, I'm not even worthy to tie them. And Jesus said, no, suffer that this be done. It's necessary. So I had met a lot of people that helped me go through necessary pain. And unfortunately, some of you, God used you, and you wouldn't want to step up and say, I'm the one who did this to him or that to him. You wouldn't want that, and I wouldn't want that. But understand that all that happened because God permitted it. If He didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't have happened. So there is nothing to forgive because there is no harm done. It was necessary. Yeah, things have been that hectic. When you get into people's churches and then they don't want to see you ever again. It was not like you were being excommunicated. You were just being chased out of the church. Like, we don't want to see you ever again. You are this, you are that. And coming in with evidence of supposedly, I don't know how true that is, or that was, that apparently there's a pastor from Venda that came with the evidence that this one, when you see him here, is because he's running away. So to them, the reason why I would rather be away from my home and be out there was because they said I was very mischievous. I've gotten so many women pregnant in Venda, and no church wants me there. So hence I'm out there. So people chase him out there. And that was what was said to me in front of everybody else in that committee. And for that, they say, no, even in this area, in Bushbuckridge, you will never preach. You will never be in a church here. We don't want your kind. And that was harsh. I left. I had to find another church just so I can fellowship. And I did find one, fellowshipped, and it was around the same time that very relationship that also was part of the reason of being chased out. It wouldn't work, it failed. And I had to accept, okay, fine. It seems like things are not working out. And I began to think, you know what, I think I've had enough of church people, because I've realized that church people, sometimes they can be more wicked than the ones outside. I don't know if that is true, or the ones outside are, already in the hands of the Lord of the world, that He doesn't really have to put more spice. But church people can hurt you deep. They can tear you apart. They don't care how you feel. They don't care how much damage they cause. They just say whatever they want to say. They just treat you anyhow they want. And that's where I've learned that, Christ can forgive anything, but the church cannot. And it makes you wonder. I mean, if Christ is supposed to be the head of the church, the head can say, even if you are wrong, even if you have killed people, the blood of Christ can still wash you. But the church says, no, we can't forgive you. That is when they have evidence that you've done something. And imagine how bad it is now when you're being treated this way and nobody can actually put a finger on that which they are saying you have done. Till this day, I have that bad reputation, and I'm one person that will not like to just stand up and trying to clear my name. I prefer to live my life the way I choose. And if anybody judge me the way they choose to, it's their prerogative. They can continue doing that. They can continue seeing me that way. It doesn't send me to hell. It doesn't take anything away from me. I live for my God, and that's it. Since I was born, my life has been scrutinized. I've always been wrong in the eyes of people. I've always been judged, and I've accepted to live that way, because that is the same thing that has been happening from churches back home. Even if I can have a relationship with this church, the next thing there'll be a scandal with my name on it that has to do with anything that is horrible that I have done, and I just accept to do that. And that was not the first church that I've been mistreated that bad. There was another church that I worked for back home that had caused me to move to Mpumalanga, actually, because of how bad things have been. Because one time I had an accident with a church car. I was serving the church. I was doing everything I could for the church. I don't remember a day till today where anybody from the leadership of the church could actually say thank you for what you're doing, because they never pay me a cent. They never say thank you. They never even will help me to come to church so I can have the church car so that I can do church duties. Although I was not working, I will have to go to my family for that little money, my mom actually, all the time, so that I can go and work for the church. So I had an accident, and instead of them checking, are you okay? The question was, is the car okay? That was more important. And that very night, we were busy with a youth conference. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't spend a night in the hospital. The person that was in charge was part of our church. So I said, please, due to the fact that we have a youth conference, you know I'm the youth pastor, I can't be here. I must go and check on things. So they allowed to release me, but very worried that if anything goes wrong with you, then we're in trouble. But that night I couldn't sleep, because I was sleeping on the floor. And the worst thing that I remember about that was, sometimes they will take my blanket and put it at the door of the pastor's office so that he can clean his shoes. He shouldn't get in his office with mud, but they must clean with my blanket, and at night I must just use that. And if it's cold, you want to cover your head, there's soil coming into your eyes. And so it was that treatment from church people that knows very well what they're doing, and I will live in the church so that I can clean the church, I can help set up the sound, I can help clean the yard, I can drive. And the one thing that they will do for me, they will buy that bag of mealie meal and put it there, and that's it. What you eat that with is up to you. Where you get firewood to cook whatever that is up to you. So some of the ladies in the church will give, they will take their rotten tomatoes from their home when the parents don't use them anymore. So we just cut the part that can still be used and make tomato soup with that, and no oil, nothing. Some of course will give us gravel salt, so you can just put in there and eat. I don't remember a church being concerned that the very people that are making this place need all the time, living here, driving people. Sometimes I'll have to drive people after a conference, take them to their homes. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, I'm driving back alone. People are sleeping. There's no food. There is not even a bed to sleep on. I sleep on the floor, and they will not even say thank you. Remember that last time when I said, enough is enough. Sorry, I had to say that. I should have just stayed and put up with all that if God wanted me to continue in that. That was the night of the accident. When I woke up, I couldn't take it. My body was in pain. I didn't sleep the whole night. I had to wake up 5 o'clock. I was leaving the church going home because I was in so much pain. And of course, not one member of the church came to check on me. How am I doing? For all the time that I was in bed, my family taking care of me so that I can heal. Later on, I tried calling one of the members of the youth council, and that lady started crying and said, please don't come back in this church. I said, why? I said, the way you have been excommunicated in your absence. And then what did I do now? So now there's one of the guys that said that he caught you sleeping with 3 women in the church on the pulpit. I can't even walk, and I'm being excommunicated for having fornicated on top of the pulpit. Am I that demonic? It hurt me. But that happened when I was still in that situation, I was very sick. One of these pastor friends somewhere around Malamlele came and said, Pastor, we had planned a crusade. There's no way you're not coming to preach. I said, but I'm sick. He said, no, you'll preach sitting on the chair. I went to his crusade. One first day, second day, the third day, I had these funny noises. I was preaching on my chest, bones of my chest bones, kicked back out. And there was such an anointing that when that happened, I stood up and demons started manifesting at the time of the ministration of the word. And that's how I was healed. And while I was still there, that's when I got a call from Botswana. I had to, from that crusade, get a bus all the way to Botswana. That's when I called from Botswana and just to check a church, and I was told these things. So I had to come back to church. The treatment I got that day, when you're in the service, you forgot that you are a sinner and you raise your hands to worship God. And then when you open your eyes, you see everybody's looking at you like, you're such a sinner, and why are you lifting your hands? I mean, and after the service, there was a youth meeting. I thought it was a youth meeting as usual. And I get there, the meeting was about me. Every young person sitting there discussing that how much of a fornicator I am. I was like, even others were like, no, we have done worse things. These are speculations. And all the bad things that we have done, we've never been treated this way. Why this one is different? And insults were insults, and being insulted of how much of a sinner, fornicator, all these names, and devilish I am, and those who are defending me. Well, that didn't amount to anything. I went, I think, the whole week, instead of getting home, since I've been away from home for so long, and I was sick when I left home, that Sunday I said, I'm not going home. Because from Botswana, I came straight to the church. I didn't even go home. And I slept there. I said, I'm going to be here until this issue is resolved. Towards the end of the week, because I was traveling, I was going after the pastor, his work, his home, every day, until call people. Instead of resolving things, that pastor that was behind all these things just pick up. I was very lean. So they just picked me up like this, wanting to moor me. And I was chased out and told, this issue is finished. Just leave it as it is. But my name, just forget about it. That's when I felt like I need to maybe move for good. And that's when I went to Mpumalanga. So,
would you please take us through so after you went to Botswana, before the church started, the main church that you have now, what happened then?
My coming back from Botswana, I started, I started a ministry back home. We called it Root Back to God Ministry. I was called an evangelist at the time, and in Chandama. It started off funny. I didn't have the plan to start anything. I was just visiting one of our old church friend who is late now. And when I went to the house, meeting him with the wife and the kids, we were just sharing the word. And this other lady came. She sat with us, and I said what I was saying, or share what I was sharing, and we prayed, and I left. The following day, I got a call that when you came, the lady that joined us was actually coming to see us before she could take her life. She had gone to other homes, and they didn't even notice what that was all about. But she said the things that you said, you were actually talking to her, and she changed her mind, and she feels she has a reason to leave. And then they started asking me to come back and pray. And at the time, they didn't have a church because of politics of churches, so they couldn't go back to their church. So they had found a way at least to fellowship, and we started praying, and the work grew in that house. And then we started filling out the outside. They had cultivated some millicons in the yard. Because we needed space, we had to cut down the whole field because there were so many people who couldn't feed anymore. And that's when the ministry started growing. Of course, I was still young, and like ministries will have challenges. And West, it's when as a young preacher, you will face challenges of elderly preachers that are not so welcoming and happy for you being there. That it pushed so long that I decided, you know what, I can't put up with this. I can't stand being hated, and because of the gospel, more especially by some of the people that I consider fathers in the ministry. And then that's when I left. I think it was 2003, late 2003. I started preaching at Malamlele Tax Rank. It was that was another experience. It's something that no one can buy. People will give their lives while they're already in the taxi. Stick their head out, and you have to run after the taxi to laying hand on that person. Others are sick. They say, "Please pray for me," but the taxi is going. You chase the taxi, just for pray. Yeah, it was interesting, and I was with a dear friend who introduced me to the area, Madam Lele. And so both of us, we were not married at the time. We're not working. We didn't have any source of income, but faith. We lived on faith. And as we continue doing that ministry, street ministry, the ladies there that were selling in the market, they will say, "No, man, it seems like when you preach standing on my market, I make money. So please," they started fighting over, "Okay, today preach from here, tomorrow you preach in their market." And then they will give us fruits afterwards. And that will be our lunch, breakfast, lunch, and supper. And then it graduated to giving us, they will start giving offering. We'll buy, the 10 kg mealy meal and turkey. That was a time when turkey was very cheap. Very, very, very cheap. So we'll eat meat. I didn't have to steal any chicken. And we had great time. We'll just shut ourselves in the house and pray for days and weeks. Dry fast, just yourself and God. Of course, it is there where I was connected now to Mpumalanga. Because I'll be doing crusades around Malamlele area. Remember this one crusade in the area called Magona. I mean, being young and naive, and all that I care about was preaching the word. So I will go and preach. Remember this other crusade? Wow. People were so touched that when they had nothing to give, I remember another one brought a goat. Others would bring lux. Lux was still fashionable at the time. They would bring dawn, would bring stuff. And of course, servants of God being servants of God, they'll give me lux and dawn and a piece of meat to go home, and money enough just to get me home. The rest, I mean, yeah, we were growing up. And the work of God grew. Crusades happened, and that's when I was connected to Mpumalanga. In Mpumalanga, wow, my life, first of all, people started calling me Shfundisana. I was learning Shangan at the time, so I didn't really know what that really meant at first. So like Shfundisana, okay, but it sounds like it's got a fundisi inside that. That means they're talking about me. I'm supposed to be this great preacher. Kanti, they were saying a boy preacher. And because I was very young, and for them, it was the first time seeing such a young person that will be out in ministry, preaching crusades and revivals. And it was beautiful, great experience as well. Of course, it had its challenges, because when you are being introduced by others, I remember we went to this conference one time. Wow, and people loved us. I was just introduced in the church, and I preached, I think, about 4 days and non-stop. And this other lady in the church was really touched. She gave me a comforter. That was the first time I will have a comforter in my life, other than Chikapa. So and of course the church will bless us with money, serious one. For me, it was serious. 2,000 rand was a lot of money at the time. And now we just given that comforter and 70 rand for a taxi and go home. And it didn't mean anything as long as I'm serving God. I didn't care about what am I wearing. What I just, everything was scriptural for me, because the Bible says, "Do not worry what you're going to eat or drink or wear. The Lord takes care of that," and that kept me going. And I would not even see that the clothes that I'm wearing are not befitting anymore to be, like standing in front of people. But for some reason, God will find a way just to turn that and make them look okay. And from there, I'll meet this pastor and met that pastor and met that pastor. And then I was beginning to have, network of people that led me from one point to another. But one thing that made me actually stay in Mpumalanga, because it became my second home. So one time we were invited in a crusade. It was me and this friend of mine that we were doing street ministry in Malamlele together. So actually he was invited. He brought me along. That one was my mentor actually. So we didn't have enough money. We live by faith. So we spent a night at my house. When we woke up, we went out looking for lifts, because the money that we had could maybe take us from Giyani. So from Tshilamba, Thando, Malamlele. So we had to hike so that money, we would have enough to get there. Forget about food. We are people of faith. And when we got to that area, it was late in the evening. We didn't know that place. We just got off the taxi, started walking around asking about that pastor, and only to find out that people didn't know that pastor as a pastor. He was not a pastor. He didn't have a church. So we looked around until we bumped into this other pastor. When he heard the name, he's like, "No, man, this person is not a pastor. I can take you to his house." He invited us, but he was not expecting us. He had a tent, and somebody borrowed his tent for a crusade. He invited us to somebody's crusade without the pastor of the crusade knowing about it. So we stayed the night. He came back from the crusade that evening and found us there. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, you guys actually came." "Yeah, you invited us." "Oh, what am I going to do with you?" The next morning, he had to take us to the guy who had a crusade. We didn't have a budget for us. He took us in. "Okay, let's go work. Trust your God to provide finances for yourselves." Oh, people will come with 2 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents. And you were giving time, it was just brown there on the offering basket. It's just brown. And we had a trip further. We were going to Malelane at the time. So we preached for 2 weeks. I don't know if we raised 20 rand for 2 weeks. And my brother, I think we still had 70 rand left in the money that we used. So adding those coins with that, he could make it to Malelane. So I said, "Okay, go ahead," because we were going to this other same servant of God or man of God that was giving people tents. So we each wanted our own tents to do crusades. So he went ahead. I couldn't go because there was no money. I didn't know that was a place where God was going to turn my ministry around. And I stayed behind for 4 weeks. In that 4 weeks, we couldn't raise 60 rands. And I have to go home. And I was preaching women's service, youth service every evening. We'll move from this place to another, do a crusade elsewhere. We couldn't raise money for me to go home, let alone go to my Leilani. I had to give up on that one until this other man of God was told about the situation. He took me into his church. We quickly arranged a revival for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and he gave me 500 rands. That was a miracle. Like, wow, for the first time in minister, somebody gave me 500 rand. It's a lot of money for me. And then I had to catch a taxi back home. And then since then, we became connected. I'll go back to him. I'll work with him. He had different branches in of his churches. So we will go from place to place, and I'll work with him in his business, because he also had a business that was helping him take care of his family and also the church. So we'll be, collecting bananas, cabbages, selling in the market during the day. The evening we are preaching. It we will do that for years, because I'll go home, go back to him, go home, go back to him. And I got invited again. This pastor friend invited me back again to Mpumalanga, to Lamash. And it was for a crusade. I don't remember if it was Dumfries or Castile, but we had a crusade at the time. And when I went back, I remember Sunday, that week Sunday, coming back, he asked me to pray for someone. And this person was his wife, elder sister. She was in hospital in Nelspruit. And I remember we got home. He called her on using a landline in the house, and she was very sick. She's been in hospital for some time. She was really sick. She couldn't do much, and I just felt in my spirit not to really pray a long prayer, but rather to speak to her directly. And this is where now you learn that authority in the word, and knowing where you stand with God and the authority that God gave you. Certain things just need declarations. And we spoke, and I told her that Tuesday she's coming out of that place. And we're talking about somebody that was bedridden. And it was on a Sunday. She only had Monday to recover. And wow, that Tuesday, by faith, she got up and demanded that she be discharged. And when she left that hospital, she was healed. Apparently, they've been struggling to actually see what was really wrong with her, that they couldn't even help her. And she got discharged. And I think after that, I went back home again to Venda. And then also go back again to Mpumalanga, because I was back and forth every now and then. I was in and out, in and out. So sometimes you never know what God is doing with your lives. Just when you think you're stuck, when you think there is no hope, you don't see any way forward, you never know what God is doing. And this second time when I went back, I remember I was helping out in the family where the pastor's family, with his business that he was doing. And this other day in the morning, I was driving the madam pastor. We went to another village where she comes from, and that's when we met her sister that was in the hospital, that we prayed together, that I've never met. And the mom Rudy said to her sister, "Do you know who this person is?" And I didn't even know who she was. She didn't know who I was. I remember that day I was like I was working. I was working in the market. I was not properly dressed. I was not dressed like a pastor. I was wearing some torn-out shorts and t-shirts, and she just looked at me like, maybe he's one of your boys. No. This is the pastor that I pray for you. Wow. I've never seen such joy and excitement. And from that day, she started pleading with me, please come visit me, please come visit, come to my house. She was staying in the area of Mukuhle. That was like maybe 45 minutes drive from Tulamahashi, where I was. And then eventually I went and I saw where she stayed. We prayed together there. And then after some time, she invited me again. Said, she said to Tiana and their friends, they had arranged a crusade. They just wanted me to come and be the main speaker of that crusade. I went, they supported me, they financed my stay, and we did the crusade the whole week. And she insisted that after the crusade, I come and stay in her house. From there, she just kept insisting that if you stay, I will never go back to the hospital again. I think that was just God's way of transitioning me from Tulamahashi into Mukhohlo. Remember, it started from Cottondale, Ekonhoek, and then God moved me to Tulamahashi. And from Tulamahashi, yes, I'm coming to Mukhohlo. That's when I met the Church of Assemblies of God. We worked with them for a time, and that was in what's the name? Belfast? No, not Belfast. What's the name of that? But it's part of Mukhohlo, and that church became a blessing. It really was. It was a blessing. It was an opportunity to grow. I got to meet, or rather travel most of their church branches, their locals, and also their conferences. I learned so much, even though I became like one of them, until another pastor came, because you understand that when we talk of Assemblies of God, we're talking of part of the mainline churches. And here comes the charismatic preacher that came and say, hey, I see what you're doing here, but the challenge is, the rules and regulations here will limit you, will limit your work. Why not work with us? And I think that was my very first time when I got employed in the church. I was working for 2,000 rands a month. It was a lot of money for me, because in ministry I never thought you can actually get something like that. Remind you, I've served for years before, where I don't remember actually getting any compensation for it, because you you grow to understand, like I was taught in Botswana, that your God will have to provide. You should never look into people for provision. Your God, if you really believe that God has called you, may your God provide for you. So here I am getting into this ministry, and they're saying to me, look, we're going to give you 2,000 rands a month. And to me, it's like, wow. So it been made it more reasonable to stay and serve, and I served with the youth in the church. I served in other departments as well, and as time goes on, I at the time I thought the enemy hated me because of what will happen sometimes in areas that I will go to, and the struggles that I will face, the challenges and persecutions that I will face. I got invited again. This pastor friend invited me back again to Mpumalanga, to Lamash. And it was for a crusade. I don't remember if it was Dumfries or Castile, but we had a crusade at the time. And when I went back, I remember Sunday, that week Sunday, coming back, he asked me to pray for someone. And this person was his wife, elder sister. She was in hospital in Nelspruit. And I remember we got home. He called her on using a landline in the house, and she was very sick. She's been in hospital for some time. She was really sick. She couldn't do much, and I just felt in my spirit not to really pray a long prayer, but rather to speak to her directly. And this is where now you learn that authority in the word, and knowing where you stand with God and the authority that God gave you. Certain things just need declarations. And we spoke, and I told her that Tuesday she's coming out of that place. And we're talking about somebody that was bedridden. And it was on a Sunday. She only had Monday to recover. And wow, that Tuesday, by faith, she got up and demanded that she be discharged. And when she left that hospital, she was healed. Apparently, they've been struggling to actually see what was really wrong with her, that they couldn't even help her. And she got discharged. And I think after that, I went back home again to Venda. And then also go back again to Mpumalanga because I was back and forth every now and then. I was in and out, in and out. So sometimes you never know what God is doing with your lives. Just when you think you're stuck, when you think there is no hope, you don't see any way forward, you never know what God is doing. And this second time when I went back, I remember I was helping out in the family where I mean the pastor's family, with his business that he was doing. And this other day in the morning, I was driving the madam pastor. We went to another village where she comes from, and that's when we met her sister that was in the hospital that we prayed together that I've never met. And you know, the Mom Rudy said to her sister, "Do you know who this person is?" And I didn't even know who she was. She didn't know who I was. I remember that day I was like I was working. I was working in a market. I was not properly dressed. I was not dressed like a pastor. I was wearing some torn-out shorts and t-shirts, and she just looked at me like, ah, maybe he's one of your boys. No, 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 no. This is the pastor that I pray for you. Wow. I've never seen such joy and excitement. And from that day, she started pleading with me, please come visit me, please come visit, come to my house. She was staying in the area of Mukhuhlu. That was like maybe 45 minutes drive from Tshilamba where I was. And then eventually I went and I saw where she stayed. We prayed together there. And then after some time, she invited me again. Said, she said to Tiana and their friends, they had arranged a crusade. They just wanted me to come and be the main speaker of that crusade. I went, they supported me, they financed my stay, and we did the crusade the whole week. And she insisted that after the crusade, I come and stay in her house. From there, she just kept insisting that if you stay, I will never go back to the hospital again. I think that was just God's way of transitioning me from Tshilamba into Mukhuhlu. Remember, it started from Cottondale, Ekonhoek, and then God moved me to Tshilamba. And from Tshilamba, yes, I'm coming to Mukhuhlu. That's when I met the Church of Assemblies of God. We worked with them for a time, and that was in what's the name? Belfast? No, not Belfast. What's the name of that? But it's part of Mukhuhlu, and that church became a blessing. It really was. It was a blessing. It was an opportunity to grow. I got to meet, or rather travel most of their church branches, their locals, and also their conferences. I learned so much, even though I became like one of them, until another pastor came, because you understand that when we talk of Assemblies of God, we're talking of part of the mainline churches. And here comes the charismatic preacher that came and say, hey, I see what you're doing here, but the challenge is, the rules and regulations here will limit you, will limit your work. Why not work with us? And I think that was my very first time when I got employed in the church. I was working for 2,000 rands a month. It was a lot of money for me, because in ministry, I never thought you can actually, get something like that. Remind you, I've served for years before, where I don't remember actually getting any compensation for it, because you you grow to understand, like I was taught in Botswana, that your God will have to provide. You should never look into people for provision. Your God, if you really believe that God has called you, may your God provide for you. So here I am getting into this ministry, and they're saying to me, look, we're going to give you 2,000 rands a month. And to me, it's like, wow. So it been made it more reasonable to stay and serve, and I served with the youth in the church. I served in other departments as well, and as time goes on, at the time, I thought the enemy hated me because of what will happen sometimes in areas that I will go to, and the struggles that I will face, the challenges and persecutions that I will face. And with these ones, I faced a different challenge. And I obviously, I went on thinking, wow, why does the devil hate me this much? Because in this place, I served. I did the best I knew how, but for some reason a storm rose, and I don't know if I was becoming a threat, I was becoming a problem or a nuisance. I don't know what exactly happened that provoked such reactions that I ended up being expelled. I won't go into details, but I was told to resign, of which I refused. But still, I had to leave anyhow. But now I get to understand that God did that because my season in that place had ended, and I was too comfortable. I was taken care of. I mean, it's still at this time I was still staying with the lady Jeanette Mabunda, if I may say her name. She's been a blessing. She's gone home to be with the Lord. She had been a serious blessing in my life. And for some reason, she never got married. She was the eldest in her family among her siblings. That from her own words, she said that she had to refrain from getting married so that she can be able to support her sisters and brothers and send them to school. And by the time I met her, she was already in her 50s. You can see that she had grown as still a sister, having dedicated her life to the Lord and to the service of her family. So I continued staying there, and even though there has been problem, I remember she used to fight for me like a lioness. That one, when she heard of what happened, she went to the pastor, and I'm really sorry about that, but she took everything that he ever gave me and gave back to the pastor and said, well, if my son is such a sinner, take back your thing. That one was a fighter. I really miss her. I really miss her. But, yeah, I lost it a bit there. Because, I mean, she's been a blessing, a great blessing. She had been a great blessing in my life. And she took over and became a mother in my life when I was away and far from my family. One thing led to another. I went to another church, and then even there, storms arose. I remember one of the friends that we used to have a circle of friends, this other friend's wife, when we were together. I was just talking about what I was going through. I was just complaining and venting, and she said to me, no, but where there is fire, where there is smoke, there is fire. There's no way people will treat you this way, and then there's nothing wrong you've done. It's only now that I look back into my life and I'm thinking, God has been good in my life. God has been good, even though it didn't seem so. It was painful, it was harsh, because I had to move from place to place. I remember at the time I had to leave Mpumalanga. A friend of mine in Johannesburg had said, you can come this side, be with me. And anyway, in my company, they're looking for people. I was just fed up with church. To be honest with you, I was fed up with church because I came into church with this, with this expectation of, these holy people that treat each other fairly and righteously. And I guess I don't know if I'm too naive to believe once people say they are born again, they must start having the hearts of Christ. But I got disappointed more than once. So by that time, I was just like, I've had it with church. I've had it with church people. Even maybe God didn't call me. Why will I suffer like this? And even at this time, I mean, I'm growing. I remember, I think I was around the age of 25, I think. And I'm thinking, one day I'll have to get married. And if I'm a pastor, how am I going to get married when I don't even have enough money? Because when time went on, I then realized 2000 is nothing. If you're growing up, you really need to have your own place. You need to take good care of yourself. At this time, I was okay with clothes that are secondhand handovers. I was happy with that. But then I realized, you grow up, you get to a level where you fall in love. You want to take care of your lady. You want to take good care of yourself. I mean, I'm beginning to learn that you can actually buy expensive perfumes. I mean, how am I going to do this if I'm a pastor? So when I was told of the job opportunity, I went for it. I remember that day I caught a taxi to Nelspruit, and then from Nelspruit I hitchhiked, because that was the day of the interview. Hitchhiked to Johannesburg and in Boksburg. Got off at the freeway, walk all the way to those offices, went for the interview, and then 3 days later I was told I got a job. I've never done that before. It was in the car industry. I've never worked in my life like that. I've always been a preacher. And I struggled a bit, but God supported me and helped me here and there. For the first time, I owned my own car, and then I could afford my own place, not a back room, but a proper place. And it was exciting for a while. It was exciting for a short time. I don't know if that was God or that was just a coincidence that things happened the way they did. I really was having fun. I was enjoying my life for the first time. I don't know what it means to be broke. I remember in our company, I used to get paid on the 15th, I think, or again on the 20th and the month end. 3 times a month, I would be getting a salary. It was, wow. I didn't know what it means to be broke. And, I have my own car. I have a company car. What could a guy want for? I had begun to unwind from the life of poverty. I could realize now that, okay, I don't know if that was poverty, but I was I was just living a life of being a beggar, and now God has pulled me out. But it didn't last, because I remember that year, I found another church. I went to serve there because I thought I could bribe God. I made sure that every Sunday I go to church having about at least 1,000 rand, just to check things that needs money other than my offering or my tithe, so that I can be able to quickly assist the pastor. Sometimes I'll drive. The church was in Tembisa. The pastor was from Mamelodi. At times I'll drive from Boksburg, Mamelodi, pick up the pastor, bring her to church. Or sometimes I'll just take her from church in Tembisa, drive to Mamelodi, and then come back to Boksburg. I enjoyed that because I didn't want God to call me back to the pulpit. Till this day, don't remember telling the pastor that I'm a pastor. I don't know if she ever knew or she found out when I left, but I never said anything. I think I stayed with the church for a year, and again, bad things followed. When I was working there, one time we had a terrible accident. My family, my sister, and that changed our lives, broke our lives. It was just after Christmas. I was coming back to Joburg with my sister's family, my husband and kids, and just outside of Carousel, we had a terrible accident, and where I lost my niece. And she She died in my arms. I mean, I've been praying, Lord, please bring her back. And you just remember sitting by the side of the road, by the freeway, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. We stayed there, I think, until the early hours of the morning when we got help. And that was the hardest. I think that was the hardest time of my life. Because from there, I had to become a man, like, very fast. Very fast. I had to face the most difficult responsibility because our parents were far. My brother-in-law, I think at that time, was not working. My sister was not working. I had to step up and help, do the whole funeral. And again, we didn't have enough money. At the time, we spent a lot of money at home. But this had to happen. And, at the same time, I had to work. And I think it was the same time, Sister Jeanette Mabonda got sick again. After so many years of being okay, she got sick and she was admitted in Johannesburg. So I had to go to check on her, then deal with the family. And after the funeral, she passed. It was just one storm after the other, each devastating. When I came back from the funeral, I was fired. I was so depressed. I don't know. I think for months I'll just sleep. I didn't know what to do, where to go. I wouldn't even want to think beyond that moment. I was just depressed. It was bad. It was bad. And my life was tough at the time. And I will ask God many times, where are you? I remember this other pastor came. They had come for a conference, Benny Hinn conference in Johannesburg. They met with me and said, Pastor, you need to go back to the pulpit because all these things could be because you are not where God wants you to be. I believe that. And I remember going to that conference. I thought maybe I'll just get something from that conference so that I can find the strength to get back because I'm so broken at the time. I'm not working. I couldn't afford my place anymore. I couldn't afford my car. I had to give it up. I moved to Vosloorus. I used to be scared going into that place because it's a township. I used to feel like, in the township, the criminals and the place is dangerous. But this time, I had no choice. I had to found a place there, a back room. It was a room without a ceiling, and just that one room that had to be a bedroom, a kitchen, living room, everything was there. Mind you, where I was, I mean, we had built-in wardrobes and units and stuff, so there was no reason for me to buy a wardrobe. So I had to, because I'm not even working, I don't even have money, I had to get a rope that I had to tie from one end of the room to the other. Mutale. And that's where I will like hang my clothes, because I didn't have any other place that I can put them. And I had to, yeah, come down and embrace this life. You know, the landlord was very good to me. And I knew I had to go back to the pulpit. But this time, I have to start a work. I can't go and submit to anybody anymore. I found a school, Natioanal. They agreed to give me a classroom. I'll pay 75 rands a month. I remember it was a lot of money for me. I mean, this is what, 2008? 275 rands in 2008 for me, it was a lot of money because I was not working. We started, I managed to raise that 75 rands and made a payment, and then I said I was starting, and there were the people that were close to me said, no, we're here for you, we'll support you, and they came. We started doing cell groups. That's when we won a lot of people into the church. You know, we were sharing that room, that classroom, with another church that uses ash. So they come first and we come later. We'll have to start by cleaning the ash in the classroom. And oh my word, if I knew then what I know now, it would have been a different story. But spiritually, that thing doesn't work. It doesn't. It was. You get to that place and you feel so heavy. You lose the sermon. You lose prayer. Oh God. So we'll raise offering. After the service, people will come, because by then, before the Bolt, the idea that gave birth to Bolt and Uber was amapele. Amapele was those old funny cars. Some were not even on the road, but they'll be driven around. There were so many. They were working as taxis, going to where our normal taxis will not go. So so people will come to church, gave their 5 rands, 10 rands here and there, and then after that, hey Mruti, we need to go back home. We don't have money. So we take back from the offering, give back. Maybe we'll be left with 10 rands or 15 rands. And then the next Sunday is the same thing. By the end of the month, it's not enough to pay 75 rands for rent. It was. But, I will struggle until they will call me that you didn't pay rent. Imagine when you're getting a call for 75 rands. Yeah, we'll close the classroom, and I'll have to, even friends, come on guys, borrow me 50 rands, borrow me this, and put that money together and pay the rent. But I never gave up. Until this one time, I met somebody. They had a building that they wanted to rent out, a bigger room, almost bigger, a little bit bigger than a classroom, and they were renting it 2,000 rands. We couldn't afford 75 rands. I'm having faith for 2,000 rands, because I needed a place that is ours, that I don't have to deal with ashes and other spirits and other things that people are enchanting in that place. But the only challenge was, next door to this room, we were just divided by a wall. Next door to this room, it was a mortuary. And the doors are like this. I said, we are going in there. We went there. And, oh my word. Well, people came, but 2,000 rand became a challenge. But the only thing that I've seen God do was to give me opportunities where I can go out and then I can, work a little bit, get a piece job here and there, and raise that money and pay the rent at times, and sometimes put together the offerings that people are giving. But like I said, it seemed like it was never going to be church without challenges. And the church began to be a bit of what's the word? It became a huge challenge. I remember one time I had invited, I was supposed to be ordained by my spiritual mother, Apostle Cynthia Rendo from Botswana. She was coming with the church, so I had to arrange accommodation for her and accommodation for the people that are coming. And the church could not afford 2,000 rent. So I looked for a place, and I just had faith that I can do this. And the church said, no, we're not doing this thing. We're not doing this conference. So when the church pulled back, I said, I'm moving forward. If you don't come, God will raise the people to come. I had crazy faith. I went on to look for this place to accommodate these guys, and I have to raise money for food. You know, I knew that was going to cost me not less than 10,000, and I cannot afford 2,000 rent. And by God's grace, I will remember a friend of mine, Albert Nechsaur, very good friend of mine from high school. He was now working also in Joburg. I think he gave me 2,000 rands towards the conference, and another. Well, the good thing is God has given me so many mothers throughout my journey. Mama Ngapai, Gugu Ngapai, she's in Ireland. She sent, I think it was 500 euros that came up, plus minus 5,000 rands. Already I have 7,000. See, it's possible. So I had to go and buy mattresses for people that are coming. The owner of the building I was using was giving me a house where I can house my people. So the only thing I needed was mattresses. So I went and bought the mattresses, and then now starting to buy groceries. And another pastor friend around said, no, don't worry, pastor, I'll bring my people to come and cook. So I was going to do this whole conference with church members from another church that were coming to assist. And of course, in the last minute, the church members said, okay, fine, we're coming. And then they did. But unfortunately, they wouldn't attend. Majority of them will not be in the service. They will be cooking. And I remember Apostle Rendo went to confront them. The guys, no, we came for you. You cannot be in here. Our girls will come and cook. You go in the service. I was only called later to come out of the service because there was a problem at the kitchen. When I get there, these people were fighting with her for saying that I've never been so embarrassed in my life. I never thought I would witness such a thing, when people will not be afraid to attack a servant of God. Wow, it was bad. But anyway, I got ordained, finished the whole conference, and then they traveled back. And at home, this is, if you can follow, you will see that I'm moving from one place to another, and situations are arising that creates, moving. And now I realize I'm struggling with rent. So the only thing, my dad gave me an opportunity, come work for me. I had to go back into the family business. But the problem is, it's in Venda, in Limpopo. And I had to go back so that I can have money to pay the rent. So I thought, okay, I'll go back to church once a month. Okay, said it's a deal. And the church guys didn't even feel it like it was a problem. That, oh, no, pastor, we will raise the money. Nope, go work, pastor. And most of these guys also were professionals. They were working. They had good jobs. So I came, I was on my way coming back. My father was in Polokwane for a meeting in the driving school business. So they were having associations. We're coming together, all districts of the province. So because I needed a lift, so I stopped by in Polokwane so I can get a lift. When I get to the venue, guess what happens? my district, Vembe, says, okay, no, we cannot be doing this when we have young people. And they throw me in that meeting and they said, okay, fine, you and another gentleman, we were representing Vembe. We met with other districts who came together so that we can choose a committee. And guess who got nominated to be the chairperson of the province? And I was like, oh, Jesus, you work in mysterious ways. And that's when my move from Gauteng to Limpopo became permanent, because now I've got this responsibility. I've got a family business on the other side. I worked with my dad. For some reason, he refused to pay me, so I can't pay the rent. And first month, second month, and third month, I started complaining. And he told me, God rest his soul. Oh, he said, son, don't you have food in the house? If you don't have food, tell me, I'll buy food. So what do you want? Like, but I'm a man, I need to get paid. No, I think he gave me 2,000 rands once. And that was when I started feeling like, no, Father's house needs to be birthed in Venda. Started looking for a place I couldn't find. Before you know it, I went and visited this other church locally here, a small church, and then they invited me, no, Pastor, when you are around here, you cannot just be here, not help us preach. And I preached the first day. They said, no, again on a Saturday night, again on a Sunday. Before you know it, the church exploded. It began to grow. We started breaking down the walls of that place and extending the place. As I'm speaking today, now it's a big, beautiful church. And until God said, now it's time for you to move and carry on with your vision. And it was not a nice move. They didn't understand. I hope by now the church will have recovered in terms of not accepting that I had to leave. Because I remember when I left, because we had talks several times, and I would bring other pastors, please help my pastor understand that I can't be here. God has called me for other things, I need to leave. But until that faithful Sunday, I decided I'm not going to church. I just went. My father had said, no, you're looking for a place to start a church. We have got a stand just behind my mother's house. Why don't you use that place? It was empty. So I woke up that morning. I didn't know what I was going to do because I didn't even have money. I started debushing the place, clearing the place. People ask me, oh, Pastor, what are you doing? It's Sunday morning. I said, no, this is church. Because I was preparing it so that maybe during the week something will happen. I'll have money, maybe hire a tent or something. But the place at least will be clean. And then this gentleman jumped the fence and came and started helping me debushing. And other people heard that. People start coming to help. And when they were busy cleaning up that place, this other gentleman said, no, there's this other gentleman that has a tent and chairs that we can hire. I mean, we don't have money, but I'm sure if he's not using it, he can borrow us, and then we raise an offering and pay back. Okay? Mr. Manda Isaac, he's with us in the church now. We went to him. Indeed, he said, no, you can take the tent. And we took the tent, erected it. The church started just that day. I think we were about 38 people. I didn't go around saying, hey, I'm not there, come this way. No. People start, I don't know if others call each other, and the next Sunday, and then boom, Father's house was born. And I think that's how I ended up being back home full time. The church back in Vosloorus eventually just died down because we couldn't pay the rent, so they had to lock up the place. I don't know if they took all the chairs or everything, because after years, when I passed, the hall was still not in use. I can see our curtains on that has covered the windows, but now it's completely a mortuary now. Yeah, God has been good. That was my journey from moving from one place to another that got me back home to be Father's house, that now people know. I know there are a lot of people that don't understand how did I become the person that I am? Because from here, locally at home, those who know me, the last time they saw me, I was in high school, and the next thing I'm coming back and the church just exploded. And to a lot of people, because with our African people, nothing great happens by God. No, they don't believe that. Our people don't believe that God can do. They believe only the devil can do this. I don't know how we think this way. Even in the church, even the same people that preach faith will still be attacking me and calling me names just because of the progress and success. Because to them, they see a church that has grown and become influential in a short space of time. They don't count the 10, 12 years that I have been going from place to place and struggling and suffering and going through a lot of persecutions and punishments, even in the hands of pastors. They don't see all that because they were not there. All they see is progress. And when they see progress and they see the devil's doing and all my life and struggles, because what I now believe is that the foundation of any church is the pastor. It depends how much of yourself have you put down in the foundation. I know people do funny stuff for churches and businesses and other things. In the foundation, they put their things. But I want to believe that it's about how much of yourself as a pastor do you put down as a foundation, meaning your struggles, your pain, what have you given up, what have you suffered for the gospel. I believe that is the foundation of the church. And then when it is built on that firm foundation, anything is possible. So when I came back, people saw the full that they know. Back home, starting a ministry. I remember others that I used to do crusades for when I was still in college and after college, even saying, oh, since when is he a pastor? I'm like, since I've been doing crusades for you. So it's funny how we look into life. But all this that God has permitted to happen in my life build the person that I am. I was not built by my mother or my father. I was not built by soft life or having everything laid before you. It was a price that one had to pay in life and suffer, sometimes for the gospel. And God permitted all that. He could have prevented all that. But the question is, what kind of a leader will I be? What will I say when somebody comes broken? If today I can live in the church with other people. Others may not have a place to stay. There are not many reasons that makes people come. We've got people that are living with us. I feel their pain when because it takes me back to the time when I stayed in the church and there was no food. Intentionally, so not because it ran out. No, there was nothing. I stayed in a place and I served people that will not say, here's money for you to travel home, or, they didn't care. So having to live with other people today, I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to lose someone you love. I know what it feels like for someone to die in your arms. So it is easier for me to relate to people. And when God blesses me, and when people come closer and stay, some people feel offended. Why should these people stay? What is it that he has? It must be a snake. Because like the first thing was that I was swallowed by a snake. All these 12 years, I was living in the stomach of a snake. I don't know how big should that snake be to keep me, like if it's 12 years, that means inside that snake there must be a toilet somewhere, and a bathroom somewhere, and a kitchen somewhere, and maybe even a shopping mall, because I'll be bored just sitting in one place. Otherwise, I'll come out crippled for 12 years. I don't know how people think. And then, of course, later on, when the ministry, Father's House, began to be effective here, understand that Father's House started 2008 in Fort Slatters, but when it started here in 2013, yes, on the 14th of July, a lot of things began to happen, and miracles began to happen, and it started to grow. And of course, I moved from a snake pastor to a lion pastor, because we made stickers with the face of a lion, mimicking the face of one of the elders in heaven, with the face of a lion, meaning the kind of ministry that God has called us into, fearless and, charging into territories that in an area where it is planted were not being addressed. And so for that, people say they saw lions all over this area. I don't know. I never saw one. But then I was called, a pastor that prays a lion, and, even other leaders will go around saying that I've got a lion, they saw it, and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't know about that one. All I know is I had a tough life. I had a hard life. And God remained God. In times when I couldn't see him, I couldn't feel him, there was nothing that could prove that I had God is on my side. The 12 years after Bible school, and the rest of my years before that, I cannot tell you that I lived a life of greatness where I experienced God left, right, and center. No. Yes, when you go into prayer, you can feel the presence of God. When you're worshiping, when you're praying, when you're in fasting in the mountains. But when it comes to real life, I wouldn't feel him. I wouldn't see him. I will hear the preacher say, no, I went to a crusade, I was given a car. I didn't have a car. Nobody gave me a car. I'll be given second-hand suits, yes, and second-hand ties and Bibles, because I couldn't afford to buy all that. But not things that I will hear other people being given, tents, and that others are called into running big churches, and it never happened for me. So I can't say I walked a journey where I was experiencing the provision of God in a mighty way. But he was providing for me whenever I was in need. Because here I am. The times that I was stranded, he came through for me. Times when I don't have money to go to a crusade, he'll give me enough to get there. He never gave me more than enough, so that I can learn to stay humble and be content with the little that God has given me. So, I don't know what you're dealing with, but if you think you're not feeling God, that means maybe he's not on your side. Think again. I've walked this journey without feeling him, because we don't walk by sight, we walk by faith. We don't walk by feelings, we walk by faith. So keep the faith and keep moving forward. No matter how tough it gets, don't give up. Welcome, guys, again. Otherwise, I just want to bring to you this fact that after the whole journey that I shared with you guys, from a humble beginning, from nothing, from churching in schools and fellowshipping by the mortuary, God had given us rest. Of course, we are not done with the building, but this is our land, this is our place, and God has given us this grace to be here. And of course, we are still building. We're just extending the church and just making sure that now we've finalized this part. We still need to do the floor so that we can pave the whole place up. Come, let me show you part of the church, just to see where God has brought us from. And you can see grace after grace, and this far God has brought us, and it's better. Believe you me, it is better than where we used to be. It is better than what it used to be. To have a roof over our heads, and to be able to have service in a proper place, not in a classroom, not in a place where we have to share. We don't own anybody. We don't own the bank. We don't own anybody. It's grace, So today we are able to sit and have proper conversations. We are able to have visitors, and they can have lunch or dinner in a decent place. When I remember where the Lord had brought me from, and where He brought this church from, and I so wish that some of you guys that we started together in False Daughters can see what God has done so far. Where He brought us from. This is your Father's house. This is your pastor. Of course, today a bishop, and I thank God for what He has done. And this is our church, and I'm sure you will be able to see the church hall as well, just so that we can glorify God together, and be able to say, thus far He has kept us, and I'm proud. I'm really, really proud to be where God has brought us, and the fact that we have not given up when we had a chance to can give up. And today we even have a proper office where we can actually deal with church matters properly, and attend to you guys properly in private. Welcome to the bishop's office. This now, for now, is the office, is the bishop's office, where now I can sit back and reminisce on the things that I have seen God doing in our lives. The favor that He had showed us over these years. It was hard, but it was worth it. And I thank God for not permitting us, or permitting me, to give up. I could have given up, I could have walked away, I could have just say enough is enough and never look back. But I thank God I didn't. I hope somebody will learn something from this and take this. Maybe you're a young preacher, called of God. You have nothing, there's nothing before you, and you don't think you have what it takes to stand the ground. I'm not an old preacher. I'm a young man. But by God's grace, I have seen His favor upon my life. I have seen Him wipe away the tears from my eyes. And I have seen Him fight my battles. I love you. May the Lord God bless you.